Elena Vasquez stood barely 5 feet tall in her combat boots, her frame so slight that standard military gear hung loose on her shoulders. The other soldiers in the transport ship looked at her with barely hidden doubt. Some whispered among themselves, wondering why Command had assigned such a fragile-looking woman to the most dangerous mission of the war. The Krex Empire had been crushing human colonies for 3 years. Their warriors stood 8 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating, with strength that could snap human bones like twigs. Every battle report showed the same pattern. Human forces retreating, colonies falling, millions of people evacuating deeper into safe space. "Are you sure you're in the right place, sweetheart?" asked Sergeant Morrison, a mountain of a man with scars covering his arms. "Medical bay is 2 decks down." Elena's dark eyes met his without flinching. "I'm exactly where I need to be, Sergeant." Captain Rodriguez, the mission commander, stepped between them. "Enough. Vasquez has her orders, same as everyone else." The transport ship Defiance carried 200 soldiers toward Kepler Station, humanity's last major stronghold in the Outer Rim. Intelligence reports showed a massive Krex fleet gathering for a final assault. If Kepler fell, the aliens would have a clear path to Earth's core systems. Elena sat alone, checking her equipment one more time. Her weapons seemed almost toy-like compared to the heavy rifles and rocket launchers the other soldiers carried. A single pistol, a combat knife, and a small pack of devices that most people wouldn't recognize. The other troops assumed she was some kind of technical specialist, maybe a communications officer who got mixed in with the wrong unit. They had no idea what Elena really was. Dr. Sarah Chen, the ship's chief medical officer, approached and sat beside her. "How are you feeling?" "Fine," Elena replied simply. "Your vitals are steady, heart rate normal. That's unusual for someone heading into their first combat mission." Elena almost smiled. "This isn't my first mission, Doctor. The records show you've been stationed at research facilities, communications work, nothing like this. Records can be incomplete." Dr. Chen studied her carefully. Elena looked like she belonged in a laboratory or classroom, not on a battlefield. Her pale skin showed no scars. Her hands looked soft. Her voice stayed calm and quiet. Everything about her seemed wrong for a soldier. "Elena," Dr. Chen said softly, "if you're scared, there's no shame in it. You could request transfer to support duties. I appreciate the concern, but I'm where I need to be." The ship's intercom crackled to life. "All personnel, this is Captain Martinez. We're receiving distress signals from Kepler Station. Long-range sensors show Krex ships already in the system. Looks like we're heading into an active war zone." Around the transport, soldiers began checking weapons and armor. The mood grew tense. Elena remained perfectly still, her breathing steady, her face calm. Morrison called out to his squad. "Listen up! Intel was wrong about the timeline. Those alien bastards are already attacking Kepler. We're going in hot, so I want everyone sharp. This is the big one, people. If we lose Kepler, we lose everything." Private Jackson, young and nervous, looked around the transport. "Sarge, what's our objective when we get there?" "Hold the line. Buy time for evacuation ships. Keep the Krex from taking the station as long as possible." "What about her?" Jackson nodded toward Elena. "What's she supposed to do?" Morrison glanced over. "Probably hide in a bunker somewhere until the shooting stops." Elena heard every word but didn't react. She'd heard similar comments her entire career. People looked at her and saw weakness, vulnerability, something that needed protection. It was a useful misconception. The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Through the viewports, Kepler Station came into view, a massive ring-shaped structure orbiting a gas giant. Explosions bloomed along its hull where Krex warships pounded it with energy weapons. Human fighters darted between the alien vessels like insects attacking giants. "Holy shit," someone whispered. "There's got to be 50 Krex ships out there." Captain Rodriguez moved through the transport. Everybody listen. The station's main defense grid is down. Krek's boarding parties are already inside. Our job is to get to the command center and hold it until evacuation is complete. Stay with your squads, watch each other's backs, and remember your training. The Defiance shook violently as Krek's fighters strafed its hull. Warning lights flashed red throughout the transport bay. 60 seconds to docking, the pilot announced. Elena stood and moved toward the deployment door with the others. Soldiers around her made final equipment checks, said quiet prayers, or stared grimly at the approaching battle. Vasquez, Morrison called out. You stick close to my squad. Don't try to be a hero. Understood, Sergeant. The ship lurched as it connected with Kepler Station's docking port. Emergency klaxons wailed, and the smell of smoke drifted through the air. The station's artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, making everyone's movements slightly bouncy. Go, go, go! Rodriguez shouted. The deployment door burst open and soldiers poured into Kepler Station. The corridors were chaos. Emergency lighting cast everything in red shadows, debris littered the floors, and in the distance, the sound of weapons fire echoed through the metal halls. Elena moved with Morrison's squad through the twisting passages. The station was enormous, designed to house 50,000 people. Now it felt like a maze filled with danger. Movement ahead, Jackson called out. Around a corner came a group of station personnel, civilians in torn clothing, their faces streaked with fear and soot. A woman carrying a small child stumbled toward them. The Kreks are everywhere, she gasped. They came through the outer hull, huge ones with weapons that cut through bulkheads like paper. Morrison helped steady her. Which way to the command center? Follow the main corridor, then take the lift to level 7. But be careful. We saw at least a dozen of them heading that way. The squad moved deeper into the station. Elena stayed quiet, observing everything, the layout, the damage patterns, the sounds of distant fighting. Her mind was already working, calculating angles and possibilities. They reached the lift shaft to find it destroyed. Twisted metal and severed cables hung where the elevator should have been. Emergency ladders, Rodriguez ordered. We climb. 7 levels of maintenance ladders stretched above them. For heavily armed soldiers in full gear, it would be an exhausting climb. Elena ascended easily, her light frame and efficient movements carrying her upward without strain. As they climbed, the sounds of battle grew louder. Energy weapons hummed and crackled. Human projectile weapons chattered in sharp bursts, and occasionally the deep roar of a Krek's warrior echoed through the station's corridors. My God, whispered Dr. Chen, who had joined the assault team. Listen to that. It sounds like they're tearing the station apart. When they reached level 7, Morrison cautiously opened the access hatch. The corridor beyond was a war zone. Blast marks scorched the walls, bodies of human defenders lay scattered, and the acrid smell of burned electronics filled the air. Command center is through here, Rodriguez said grimly. Looks like we're going to have to fight our way through. They moved carefully down the corridor, stepping over debris and checking each doorway. Elena noticed details the others missed. The precise placement of blast damage, the angles of the scorch marks, the way the Kreks had systematically eliminated defensive positions. Contact! Someone shouted. At the far end of the corridor, 3 Krek's warriors appeared. They were massive creatures, 8 feet tall and covered in natural chitinous armor that deflected most human weapons. Their own energy rifles could punch through reinforced bulkheads. The human squad opened fire immediately. Bullets sparked harmlessly off Krek's armor while return fire carved chunks out of the corridor walls. The soldiers dove for cover behind overturned tables and damaged equipment. Our weapons aren't doing anything, Jackson yelled over the gunfire. Keep shooting, Morrison ordered. Concentrate fire on their joints and visors. Elena crouched behind a fallen beam, watching the battle unfold. The Kreks moved forward slowly, confident in their armor's protection. Their energy weapons recharged between shots, giving the humans brief moments to return fire before being driven back into cover. One of Morrison's men screamed as a Krek's energy bolt caught him in the shoulder. Dr. Chen crawled forward to help, but more alien fire forced her back. "We need to fall back," Rodriguez shouted. "Regroup and find another route." But as the squad prepared to retreat, Elena stood up from her cover. "Elena, what are you doing?" Dr. Chen called out. "Get down!" Elena walked calmly into the center of the corridor, directly into the line of fire. The Krek's warriors paused, perhaps confused by this small human's apparent death wish. Elena drew her sidearm, a standard human pistol that seemed laughably inadequate against armored alien warriors. She raised it steadily, took careful aim, and fired 3 shots. All 3 Krek's warriors collapsed simultaneously. The corridor fell silent except for the distant rumble of battle elsewhere in the station. Human soldiers stared in shock at the 3 fallen aliens, then at the slight woman standing over them. "How did you—" Morrison began, but Elena was already moving forward, checking the Krek's bodies with professional efficiency. "Headshots," she said simply. "Their visors are transparent aluminum, not energy-resistant ceramic like the rest of their armor. Single projectile through the frontal lobe causes immediate neural shutdown." She knelt beside the nearest fallen warrior and examined its weapon. "These energy rifles have a 3-second charge cycle. During recharge, they're vulnerable to coordinated fire. The armor has overlapping plates. If you hit the gaps at the right angle with sufficient velocity, you can penetrate to vital organs." Elena looked up at the stunned soldiers around her. "The Kreks aren't invincible. You just need to know where to shoot." Morrison found his voice first. "Who the hell are you?" Before Elena could answer, more Kreks appeared at the far end of the corridor. This time there were 6 of them, and they'd learned from watching their comrades fall. They spread out and advanced more cautiously. Elena moved without hesitation. She flowed between their energy blasts like water, her movements precise and economical. Each shot she fired found its target: visor cracks, armor gaps, weapon joints. Within 30 seconds, 6 more Krek's warriors lay dead. The human soldiers slowly emerged from cover, staring at Elena as if seeing her for the first time. "Jesus Christ," whispered Jackson. "She's not fragile at all. She's a fucking weapon." Elena reloaded her pistol with practiced efficiency. "We need to reach the command center. More Kreks will be coming." As if summoned by her words, the deep rumble of alien boots echoed through the station's corridors. Somewhere in the distance, a human screamed. Rodriguez found his command voice. "You heard her. Move out. Stay close and do exactly what she says." The squad advanced deeper into Kepler Station, but everything had changed. Elena was no longer the fragile woman they needed to protect. She was their best hope for survival against an enemy that had seemed unbeatable. Behind them, emergency systems struggled to contain fires and seal hull breaches. Ahead of them, the command center waited, if they could reach it through the army of Krek's warriors standing in their way. Elena checked her remaining ammunition and smiled slightly. The real fight was just beginning. The command center of Kepler Station was a fortress under siege. When Elena and the squad finally reached it, they found the heavy blast doors sealed shut and the corridor outside littered with the bodies of both human defenders and Krek's attackers. Emergency lights flickered overhead, casting dancing shadows across walls scarred by energy weapons. "Command, this is Rodriguez," the captain spoke into his communicator. "We're outside the command center. Request immediate entry." "Rodriguez, thank God," came the reply. "This is Admiral Hayes. We've been holding them off, but barely. Stand by for door unlock." The massive blast doors slid open with a grinding mechanical sound. Inside, the command center looked like a war room from hell. Banks of monitors showed the battle raging throughout the station, while officers coordinated desperate defensive actions. Admiral Hayes, a silver-haired woman with exhausted eyes, rushed forward to meet them. "Captain, how many troops did you bring?" 18 soldiers, sir, plus support personnel." Hayes looked at the small group and her face fell. 18? That's all? We're facing over 200 Krex warriors. They've taken most of the station. We're barely holding the critical areas. Elena stepped forward. "Admiral, what's the strategic situation?" Hayes looked at her with surprise. "You're civilian personnel, aren't you? You should be in the evacuation shelters." "I'm whatever you need me to be," Elena said calmly. "What's our situation?" Rodriguez intervened. "Admiral, I strongly recommend you listen to her. She's more capable than she appears." Hayes studied Elena's slight frame and quiet demeanor, then shook her head. "The Krex have control of the docking bays, the power stations, and most of the residential sections. We're holding the command center, the armory, and one evacuation bay. But they're massing for a final assault." She pointed to the central display screen, which showed a tactical map of the station. Red markers indicated Krex positions, blue showed human-held areas. The blue areas were shrinking. "They've cut power to the defensive turrets. Without those automated weapons, we can't cover all the approaches. They're going to overrun us within the hour." Elena examined the tactical display with intense concentration. Her mind processed the information with computer-like precision, calculating angles, timing, and probability matrices. "The power station is here," she said, pointing to a section deep in Krex-held territory. "How many warriors are defending it?" "Sensors show at least 40 Krex in that area. It would be suicide to try to retake it." "Not retake it. Just get close enough to restart the defensive grid." Lieutenant Morrison laughed bitterly. "Lady, 40 Krex warriors would turn a full company into hamburger. You're talking about a handful of soldiers." Elena turned to face him, and something in her eyes made him step back. "I'm talking about me. Alone." The command center fell silent. Officers stopped their frantic work to stare at this small woman calmly proposing to single-handedly assault a position defended by 40 alien warriors. "That's impossible," Admiral Hayes said firmly. "I won't authorize a suicide mission." "It's not suicide if you can't be killed." Dr. Chen moved closer to Elena. "What are you saying? You're human. You can be hurt just like anyone else." Elena met her gaze steadily. "Can I?" Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the command center. On the main screen, new red markers appeared, a massive Krex assault force moving toward their position. "Contact!" shouted a technician. "Multiple bogies approaching! Estimate 150 Krex warriors plus heavy weapons platforms." Admiral Hayes grabbed her communicator. "All units, prepare for final defensive action. This is it, people." Elena walked to the weapons locker and began selecting equipment. She chose additional ammunition, several small devices that looked like standard explosives, and a curious metallic headband with electronic components. "What's that thing?" Morrison asked, pointing to the headband. "Insurance," Elena replied, placing it on her head. Red lights began blinking along its surface. "Admiral, I need you to activate the station's internal battle recording system. Every corridor, every room." "The battle cams? Why?" "Because people need to see what's about to happen." The ground shook as Krex heavy weapons began pounding the command center's outer defenses. On the screens, they could see the alien assault force advancing through the corridors like a tide of death. Elena checked her pistol one final time. "When I leave this room, lock the doors behind me. Don't open them until you receive my signal." "Elena, wait!" Dr. Chen called out. "At least tell me who you really are." Elena paused at the entrance to the command center. "Project Nemesis. Classified military enhancement program. They tried to create the perfect soldier. She looked back with a slight smile. Turns out they succeeded. The blast doors opened, and Elena walked out into the corridor. Behind her, she heard Admiral Hayes order the doors sealed. The corridor outside was a killing ground. Krek's warriors advanced from 3 directions, their energy weapons lighting up the darkness with deadly fire. Elena stood perfectly still in the center of the intersection, watching them approach. Throughout Kepler Station, battle cameras automatically activated, recording everything in high definition. The footage would later be studied, analyzed, and replayed countless times across human space. The first wave of Krek's warriors reached the intersection. Elena moved. She didn't run or dodge like a normal human would. Instead, she flowed between the energy blasts with impossible precision, as if she could see each shot coming seconds before it was fired. Her pistol barked repeatedly, each shot finding its target with mechanical accuracy. In the command center, officers watched in stunned silence as their monitors showed Elena cutting through Krek's warriors like they were standing still. Her movements were too fast, too precise, too perfect for baseline human capability. "How is she doing that?" whispered a technician. Elena reached the first group of Kreks, and her knife appeared in her free hand. She moved among them like a dancer, each motion fluid and deadly. The aliens, despite their size and strength, couldn't touch her. She was always exactly where their weapons weren't, striking at precise points that dropped 8-foot warriors instantly. The battle recording system captured every detail. Elena's face remained calm and focused as she fought, showing no strain or fatigue. Her breathing stayed steady even as she moved at superhuman speeds. More Kreks poured into the corridor. Elena's pistol clicked empty, but she didn't pause to reload. Instead, she picked up a fallen Krek's energy rifle and began using it with the same deadly precision. The alien weapon looked massive in her small hands, but she handled it as easily as her sidearm. "She's not even breathing hard," Admiral Hayes murmured, watching the monitor feeds. What the hell did they do to her? Elena fought her way deeper into the station, always moving toward the power station. Behind her, she left a trail of fallen Krek's warriors. The aliens began falling back, their confident advance turning into confused retreat as this single human carved through their ranks. In the residential section, Elena encountered a group of Kreks who had taken human civilians hostage. The aliens held families at gunpoint, using them as shields. Elena approached slowly, her hands apparently empty. "Stay back, human," the lead Kreks growled in accented English. "Or these meat creatures die." Elena stopped 20 feet away. "Let them go. Your fight is with me." "You are one small female. What threat can you pose?" Elena smiled, and the battle cameras caught the expression perfectly. It was not a human smile. It was the smile of a predator who had found her prey. She moved so fast the cameras could barely track her motion. The Kreks holding hostages had no time to react before Elena was among them. In seconds, all 6 alien warriors lay dead or dying, while the human hostages remained unharmed. "How did you—" a rescued woman began, but Elena was already moving on. The power station lay 3 levels below. Elena made her way through the maintenance shafts, avoiding the main corridors where Krek's reinforcements were moving. The battle cameras in the service areas caught glimpses of her progress, a shadow moving through spaces too small for the alien warriors to follow. She emerged in the power station's main chamber to find 40 Krek's warriors waiting for her. They had prepared defenses, positioned heavy weapons, and created overlapping fields of fire. It should have been impossible for any single person to survive entering that room. Elena paused at the entrance, studying their positions. Then she reached up and adjusted something on the metallic headband she wore. The device began recording directly to her personal memory banks, a backup to the station's battle cameras. "I am Elena Vasquez," she said clearly, speaking to the recording devices. "If you're watching this, it means humanity needs to remember what we're capable of." She entered the power station. What followed was not a battle. It was a demonstration. Elena moved through the Krek's defenders like a force of nature, unstoppable and remorseless. Her enhanced reflexes let her dodge energy blasts that would have vaporized any normal human. Her modified musculature gave her strength to crush alien bones despite her small size. Her augmented nervous system processed information at superhuman speeds, letting her anticipate enemy movements before they happened. But it was more than just physical enhancement. Elena fought with a tactical brilliance that turned the power station into her weapon. She used the machinery to block shots, triggered electrical overloads to disable groups of enemies, and exploited the station's layout to force the Kreks into disadvantageous positions. In the command center, officers watched in awe as their screens showed Elena systematically destroying an enemy force that should have been able to defeat a full battalion of Marines. "She's not human anymore," Dr. Chen whispered. "She's something else entirely." Elena reached the power station's main console. Around her, 40 Kreks warriors lay dead or disabled. She worked quickly, her fingers flying over the controls with computer-like precision. Throughout Kepler Station, defensive turrets came back online, their automated targeting systems locking onto Krek's positions. But even as victory seemed within reach, more alarms sounded. On the tactical display, a new contact appeared. A Krek's dreadnought, larger than any ship in their fleet. "Krek's command ship," Admiral Hayes announced over the intercom. "They're deploying elite warriors, estimated 200 more hostiles incoming." Elena's voice came through the communicators, calm and steady. "Admiral, begin evacuation immediately. I'll hold them here." "Negative. You've done enough. Fall back to the command center." "I'm staying." On the screens, they watched Elena prepare for the final assault. She gathered weapons from fallen Kreks, positioned herself in the power station's central chamber, and waited. The elite Krek's warriors were different from the others. Larger, faster, equipped with better armor and weapons, they moved with tactical precision that matched Elena's own enhanced capabilities. But they had never faced anything like Project Nemesis. Elena met their charge head-on. The battle cameras recorded every moment as she fought beyond human limits, pushing her enhanced abilities to their absolute maximum. Energy weapons filled the air with deadly light, but Elena moved through the chaos like a ghost, dealing death with surgical precision. The footage would later be analyzed by military experts across human space. They would study her movements frame by frame, trying to understand how one person could accomplish the impossible. But in that moment, watching the live feed, everyone in the command center could only stare in amazement. Elena was not just winning, she was dominating. Each motion was perfect, each shot precisely placed, each tactical decision optimal. She had become something beyond human limitations, a weapon designed to protect humanity at any cost. As the last Krek's elite fell, Elena stood alone in the power station, surrounded by the bodies of hundreds of alien warriors. Her clothing was torn and stained, but she showed no signs of serious injury. The battle cameras captured her face clearly, calm, focused, undefeated. "Station secure," she reported simply. "You can begin evacuation now." Throughout Kepler Station, the remaining Krek's forces began retreating to their ships. Faced with the impossible sight of their elite warriors destroyed by a single human, their morale shattered. The defense of Kepler Station had become something else entirely, a demonstration that humanity would not go quietly into extinction. In the command center, Admiral Hayes stared at the tactical display showing green markers where red had dominated just hours before. A single human woman had turned the tide of the entire battle. "My God," she whispered, "what have we created?" 3 months after the Battle of Kepler Station, the war had changed completely. In military command centers across human space, the same footage played on endless loop. A slight woman moving through alien warriors like death itself, turning impossible odds into total victory. The recording had spread through every human world, every military unit, every civilian shelter. Elena sat in a conference room aboard the flagship Retribution, surrounded by the highest-ranking officers in human space. Fleet Admiral Chen, General Morrison, and a dozen other commanders studied her with expressions that mixed awe, gratitude, and barely concealed fear. "The psychological impact has been extraordinary," reported Dr. Sarah Chen, now promoted to Chief of Strategic Assessment. "Recruitment is up 400%. Morale across all fronts has skyrocketed. But more importantly, the Kreks are retreating." Admiral Chen leaned forward. Their entire battle doctrine was based on intimidation through superior size and strength. The Kepler footage destroyed that advantage overnight. Every Kreks warrior now knows that humans can fight back effectively. Elena listened quietly, her expression unchanged. She looked exactly as she had 3 months ago, small, pale, seemingly fragile. But everyone in the room now understood what lay beneath that deceptive appearance. "The technical analysis is complete," General Morrison continued, sliding a datapad across the table. "Our scientists have studied every frame of the battle footage. They've identified 17 distinct enhancement types in your physiology. Enhanced reflexes, augmented strength, modified nervous system, improved healing rate. The question," Admiral Chen said carefully, "is whether Project Nemesis produced other subjects like you." Elena met his gaze steadily. "I was the only successful candidate. The others—" She paused. "The enhancement process has a very high failure rate." Dr. Chen spoke up. "Elena, we need to understand the full scope of what was done to you. If we're going to win this war, we need to know what humanity is capable of." "What humanity is capable of," Elena said quietly, "is surviving. Whatever the cost." She stood and walked to the conference room's main display, which showed current battle maps. Red markers indicated Kreks positions, but there were far fewer than there had been before Kepler. 3 months ago, the Kreks controlled 60% of the Outer Rim territories. Today, they control 18%. They're not just retreating, they're abandoning entire star systems rather than face human forces. General Morrison nodded. "Intelligence reports confirm massive troop movements back toward Kreks space. They're consolidating their forces." "Because they're afraid," Elena said simply. "Not of me specifically, but of what I represent." Proof that humans are more dangerous than they calculated. The truth was even more complex than the military leaders realized. The Kepler footage had done more than boost human morale. It had shattered Kreks' assumptions about their enemy. For generations, the Kreks Empire had expanded by crushing inferior species through brute force and psychological intimidation. They had never encountered an enemy that could match their warriors in single combat. Elena walked to the window overlooking the fleet assembled outside. Hundreds of human warships stretched to the horizon, more than had ever been gathered in one place. The sight of the Kepler footage had united humanity in a way that years of defeats could not. "Admiral," Elena said, "I want to visit the training facilities." An hour later, Elena stood in the main gymnasium of the training ship Endeavour, watching 3,000 new recruits practice combat techniques. The exercises were different now, faster, more aggressive, designed around the assumption that human warriors could match alien strength through superior skill and determination. Sergeant Jackson, now promoted to training coordinator, approached her. "The new recruits are incredible," he reported. "They've all watched the Kepler footage dozens of times. They study your techniques like religious texts." Elena observed a group of soldiers practicing the precise shooting techniques she had demonstrated. They aimed for visor weak points, armor gaps, weapon joints, all the vulnerabilities she had exploited during the battle. "Are they effective?" she asked. "Incredibly. Our casualty rates have dropped 70% since we implemented the new training protocols. The Kreks don't know how to fight opponents who understand their weaknesses." A young recruit noticed Elena and nudged his companions. Within moments, the entire gymnasium had fallen silent as 3,000 soldiers turned to stare at her. They looked at her with expressions of reverence that made Elena uncomfortable. "As you were," she said quietly. But nobody moved. Finally, a female corporal stepped forward. "Ma'am, is it true? The footage from Kepler. Did you really fight 200 Kreks warriors alone?" Elena studied the young woman's face, seeing the hope and determination there. "I did what was necessary to protect human lives. But how? How did you move so fast? How did you know where they were going to shoot?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. "Because I refuse to accept that humans are inferior. The Kreks are strong, but strength without intelligence is just violence. We're smarter, faster, more adaptable. We learn from every defeat and come back stronger." She looked around the gymnasium at the thousands of young faces watching her. "The enhancements I received helped, but they weren't what won the battle. What won was refusing to surrender, refusing to accept defeat, refusing to let the enemy decide what humanity is capable of." The recruits listened with rapt attention. Elena realized that she had become more than just a soldier. She had become a symbol of human potential. "Every one of you has the same capacity for excellence that I do. Maybe not the physical enhancements, but the same determination, the same refusal to quit, the same willingness to protect what matters." She paused. "That's what makes us human. Not our limitations, but our refusal to accept them." Later that day, Elena met with Dr. Chen in the medical bay of the flagship. The doctor ran routine scans while they talked, monitoring the various enhancement systems in Elena's body. "The modifications are stable," Dr. Chen reported. "Your healing rate, neural processing, muscle efficiency, all functioning within normal parameters, but I'm concerned about the psychological impact." "Meaning?" "You've become larger than life. The footage from Kepler has turned you into a legend. Soldiers pray to images of you before battle. Children play games where they pretend to be Elena Vasquez fighting aliens." Dr. Chen looked troubled. "That's a tremendous burden for one person to carry." Elena considered this. "The burden isn't mine alone. Every human soldier carries part of it now. They believe they can win because they saw proof that victory is possible. But what happens when the war ends? What happens to someone designed to be the perfect weapon when there's no more fighting to do?" It was a question Elena had been avoiding. Project Nemesis had created her for one purpose: to kill enemies of humanity with maximum efficiency. But she was still human enough to wonder what came after the killing stopped. "I don't know," she admitted, "but first we have to win." 2 weeks later, Elena received new orders. Intelligence had located the Kreks High Command, the leadership council that directed their entire military strategy. They were gathered on a fortress world called Terminus, planning their next phase of the war. Admiral Chen briefed her personally. "Our spy satellites show massive fortifications, thousands of warriors, orbital defense platforms, enough firepower to destroy a fleet. But if we can eliminate their command structure..." "The war ends," Elena finished. "Potentially. But Elena, this mission is different from Kepler. This isn't defending a station. This is an assassination mission deep in enemy territory. Even with your abilities, the odds..." "Don't matter," Elena said simply. "If there's a chance to end this war, we take it." The mission launched 3 days later. Elena traveled alone in a modified stealth ship, slipping through Kreks patrol lines toward Terminus. As she flew through enemy space, she reviewed intelligence files on her targets. The Krek's high command consisted of 12 ancient warriors who had ruled their empire for centuries. They were larger and stronger than ordinary Kreks, enhanced by their own alien technologies. Taking them on would be like fighting 12 versions of their most elite soldiers simultaneously. Elena smiled slightly as she read the tactical assessment. The analysts estimated her chances of success at less than 5%. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Terminus loomed ahead, a dark world wrapped in defensive installations. Elena's ship slipped past the outer sensors and landed in a remote valley. From here, she would have to infiltrate the fortress on foot. As she made final equipment checks, Elena activated her personal recording system one last time. If things went wrong, she wanted humanity to understand what she had tried to accomplish. This is Elena Vasquez, Project Nemesis operative, beginning final mission phase. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it back. She paused, looking directly into the camera. But don't mourn for me. Mourn for our enemies, because they never understood what they were fighting. She turned off the recorder and began walking toward the fortress. Above her, alien stars looked down on the small figure crossing the hostile landscape. To any observer, she would have seemed impossibly fragile, one tiny human against an empire of giants. But Elena Vasquez had already proven that appearances could be deceiving. The Kreks were about to learn that lesson one final time. As she approached the outer defenses of the fortress, Elena felt the familiar calm settle over her. This was what she had been created for. This moment when everything humanity had built and dreamed and fought for came down to a single person's refusal to surrender. The war was about to end, one way or another. In the distance, alarms began to sound as the fortress detected her approach. Thousands of Krek's warriors mobilized to stop her, but they were preparing to fight a fragile human woman. They had no idea they were about to face the fury that had already turned the tide of war. Elena smiled and drew her weapons. It was time to finish what she had started at Kepler Station. Time to show the galaxy what humanity was truly capable of when pushed to its absolute limit. Time to end this war forever,